Good evening. Commissioner Avedisian, Chairman of the Committee on, yeah, that would be good, MDC government, Planning, Strategic Planning Special Meeting on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Called the order. Second thing on the agenda, public comment related to agenda items. Is anybody? No? Okay. Anybody online? Okay, I think we're all set there. Number 3, approval of the meeting minutes for February 8, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any changes, additions, subtractions, whatever? Nothing? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Number 4, the bulk of this meeting is going to be the engineering, construction, environmental, health, and safety areas of the MDC. I would ask that we keep our conversations to 3 minutes. And if anyone is going to do a show and tell, please kind of flip it around towards that end so other people can see it, because that was a problem the last time. I'm sure they appreciate it, especially Judy. So let's start.
Yeah, great, thank you, Scott Jellison. So we did remove the EH&S environmental health and safety component for the presentation, just to keep us under time frame, expecting a lot of comments and questions from staff. Thank you, Susan. So we have Chris Levesque, Chief Operating Officer. I think you're going to start it off with Susan Negrelli. Susan is a Director of Engineering. So Chris, go ahead.
Yep, thanks, Scott. Yeah, this is part 3 of our discussion about our management study. First 2, operations, utility services, and command center. I did come into engineering, and a number of us started in engineering and then went out and worked at the facilities, but there has been sort of decentralization probably at the time of this management study was done, but Susan's going to really demonstrate how engineering has really been centralized and is leading essentially all the initiatives across the organization right now, and built those relationships back with the facilities that didn't exist. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Susan to introduce herself and as well as her staff. Thank you.
All right, I've got some people here tonight that I want to introduce, and they're going to do a couple slides here and there. But we've got Mike Curley, Manager of Technical Services, Jason Waterbury, Manager of Engineering, Jeff Davis, Manager of Construction, and we've got our Senior Project Managers in Technical Service, Dave Banker and Jennifer Ottolagana, and our Senior Project Managers in Design, Alan Pelletier, Josh McCulloch, Alex Cosentino. So you'll be hearing from all of us tonight, not just me. Wanted to show you this. This was from the, actually, in the management study, it talked about reorganizing the district was one of the main topics in there. And, back when I started, engineering was under, there were 5 directors under the district manager. And I just want to show you over the years how the department has, if there's any takeaways here, how the department has evolved and how we've grown from back then. I remember, and not to start out on a negative note, but in '97, it might have been our capital execution was it was non-existent, basically. I would say our development services and engineering was very busy, and you'll see slides to prove these points as we go along. I'll show you what we've been doing over the years, but development was doing a lot of, developers were coming in and building our system back in the early 2000s. There wasn't a lot of capital work. Now there's a lot of capital work, clean water work, and with some development component. So you'll see that. So based on the fact that there wasn't a lot of capital execution going on, back in '06, when they started the Clean Water Project, they basically had to create a new unit. It was called the Project Management Unit. And they basically avoided engineering. They created their own, you can see on this table of organization, there was a chief of PMU, and they had their own design department, they had their own construction department, they had procurement, they had, people doing grants and loans for them. And then the regular engineering was under the CAO, so there was a manager of engineering services and a manager of construction over there. So basically, because they weren't functioning well, they created their own unit to handle the Clean Water Project. Scott, would you, is that a good explanation?
Define functioning well.
But what happened with PMU is not only did they avoid engineering, but they avoided operations and they avoided utility services, and they were kind of going out, they were going rogue, I think, for a little while, doing their own thing, and that was starting to cause problems. And here we are back again, it was about 2010, I think, that engineering came under the COO, PMU kind of disappeared. Engineering was moved under the chief operating officer, and here we are with our current makeup of, I have a design group, technical services group, and construction, and we have a supplier diversity as well. And this just goes, this is our staffing levels from 2000 to 2002 till now. There's 43 in engineering now. Back in, you'll see the dip in '06, that's when they moved utility services out of the department, out of engineering. Then it grew, the next few years from '06 to 2010 was the engineering and PMU combined. You can see they got up to 100 people. And then slowly over the years, we've gotten smaller. And to Scott's, Scott's always saying to do more with less. I think you can see here, and you'll see in some of the slides coming up how we are actually, we are doing quite a bit more with less. So again, just back to the report, they talk about, reorganizing the district. I've already touched upon this, some of the groups, but one of the other things back in 2010, they created new positions called project managers and construction managers, really gave those a lot more responsibility given to those people in driving the projects through our system. We have also created in recent years the new position of senior project manager to help guide some of the larger programs that we're running, and you'll hear from some of those people tonight. And most recently, one of the groups formed is our maintenance engineering group, and you'll hear from Alex about that group that we formed. But with that, the next slide, I want Mike Curley to just come up and say hello and give you a quick description of what technical services is all about.
Susan, if I can just add, the senior project manager position was a very strategic position for succession planning, right? So a lot of engineers may not be good managers, and we're trying to transition engineers into managers for the future. So senior project managers have staff now reporting directly to them, so they become a manager as well as a technical engineer.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Mike Curley. I'm the manager of technical services. I've been with the district for 23 years. I was recruited a long time ago for the CSO program, and I've been the manager of technical services since 2014. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is capital planning. So the technical services staff, engineering staff, are responsible for all the short and long-term master planning for the district with respect to water and sewer infrastructure. We've created plans working in conjunction with our consultants. We've created plans like the Clean Water Project, the CMOM program or plan, and on the water side, the Raw Water Master Plan. and now the integrated plan. Our engineers also, besides working on the large master plans, we also have other programs that work with the master plan, like our asset management plans, water and sewer asset management plans for the CIP. We also have to maintain, we create, expand, and also maintain the tools that the master planning efforts require, such as the treated water distribution model, as well as the SWIM model that they use in the sewer system master planning. The technical services group also includes all of the responsibilities held by the previous development services group under the old engineering organization. We deal with, we also, in addition to dealing with our developers, we deal with all our internal stakeholders, which includes our permitting group, our real estate, legal. We also work with all of the outside stakeholders like the towns, the various departments, building departments, engineering departments. Our main role is to make sure that when developers come to us, that they, if they have to modify our water and sewer main lines, that they do this in a way that meets our requirements and standards. We also maintain a lot of the MDC standards. We write a lot of the procedures and policies, and also the manuals that guide us forward in our design projects. We specifically we maintain the technical specifications, the details, as well as the approved material list, as well, and all the way down to things such as the CAD standards. On the management, we also manage the engineering records, record plan process, the record plans, progress plans, house connection permits, and pavement sketches. So we get them, we work with our drafting department, and all of that is reviewed through either the project managers or through our own staff. Now there is, and there may be a discussion tonight about the, we have a huge backlog of record plans. So the engineering services, working with our consultants, have developed new ways to be able to allow us to continue working as we have with our drafting department to take care of the backlog, but also to also figure out a new method of creating record plans using our GPS and GIS department, which I think Jason Waterbury will talk about later on in the presentation. Finally, we do, our technical services does a lot of our regulatory reporting. All our federal, state, consent order reporting for our CSO and SSO programs, as well as any compliance reporting for DPH. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Excuse me, any questions?
We've got Jason Waterbury here now, Manager of Engineering Services. This isn't moving, Victoria. But go ahead, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Jason Waterbury, Manager of Engineering with the Metropolitan District. I've been here for about 15 years. Actually was one of the original rogue engineers hired into PMU. I have been in construction, engineering, technical services, and now back to engineering. So I've seen various different aspects of the district. I've done a lot of work with operations, so it's kind of given me a flavor for how we want to move going forward. Within the engineering department, we have 11 staff, of which are 3 senior PMs, 1 professional level trainee, and then 7 project managers. And between the 3 senior PMs and the 7 project managers, They are all either a program manager or a project manager or both, depending on the assignment. Their main mission is they are where the buck stops with regards to the delivery of a project, whether it be during design or construction. They're ultimately responsible for design reviews, quality reviews on a given project, coordination with other departments, whether it be operations or utility services or the command center or construction or outreach and communications, or communication outside the district, like regulatory officials with regards to a schedule on a given project, or other stakeholders. A couple other highlights that I want to hit on this slide. The projects that we manage are approximately $75 to $100 million a year, whether it be a combination of CIP and clean water and now integrated planning going forward. There'll be a couple more slides on this clean water and IP, which I'll discuss later on in the presentation. It's in a variety of flavor of projects, pump station projects, facility projects, normal horizontal, whether it be water or sewer projects, or projects related to our consent order or consent decree. And then one of the other key bullets here, which will show up in a couple other slides, is engineering is, thanks to bringing us all back together, centralizing engineering. Engineering now is ultimately responsible for the budgeting process starting in that July-August timeframe. Or sorry, the capital process starting in that August-July timeframe. And that starts off with listening to requests from other departments, prioritizing those projects within our staff, with those other staff, and coming up with that list, that plan of projects going forward, which we'll talk about on another slide. But that list is continuously monitored and reprioritized as new priorities come up against a capital spending target, a cash flow target. And one other thing I wanted to point out as a theme going forward, which you'll see is, and with this do more with less, is we're really trying to implement and use more technology to help us manage this high workload with the ever-decreasing staff that Susan pointed out on the prior slide. With that, I'll give it to Jeff. Any questions?
Jason,
Yes.
where is that? Okay. I was at the reservoir the other day, and I saw them kind of keeping pipe out there.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Because I thought that was quite intriguing, that you could keep basically a nice storage area right here on site.
You want to hold off? Josh is probably going to talk about that, because
Oh, all right, okay.
that pipe is Josh's pipe.
Yep. That's it. Let's not step on the parade.
Yep.
Good. That was good.
Anyone else? No?
All right, come on up. This is Jeff Davis, our Manager of Construction and Inspection Services.
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Davis, as Susan said, been with the district for 13 years. I started in the construction department as a project engineer and later as a construction manager. I was promoted to manager of design, where I was for 8 years up until last May. I became the manager of construction. So I've worn both hats. My staff consists of 5 construction managers who are like they're the person who runs that project. They manage the project. They are the point of contact with the contractor. They negotiate change orders and any other information they have to do, make decisions on whether something is included in the price for an item. I also have 4, soon to be 5 construction services supervisors who basically run from job to job to job, oversee the projects, meet with the contractors. Meet with the contractors and the oversee it, and the inspectors. We have 3 in-house inspectors right now, and we have multiple consultant inspectors working. So it's sort of a juggling act on there, and they want to make sure that nothing's slipping through the cracks. So there's sort of a second set of eyes looking, not looking in the hole, but looking around and at what's going on, how we're affecting the neighborhoods. Staff manages multiple construction projects simultaneously. We ensure that the new infrastructure is being built to MDC standards, ensure construction progresses with the least amount of disruption on our customers, including proper notifications and communications. And we also keep an eye on safety. We want to make sure everybody goes home at the end of the day. And we also complete all the final paperwork needed to open up new facilities. And with that,
Thank you. So one of the, I'm getting into the management study here, they talk about in your business process improvement program, we want to talk about communications, and Jeff just alluded to that a little bit about, and I would say that this is definitely one of the positives that came out of the PMU unit was they did outreach and project communications. They had numerous people, organizations that they work with, and because we were doing all the sewer separation work, it was a lot of house-to-house individual contact with customers, and we really had a strong, that built us a strong base, and we still use that to this day. We work hand in hand with Julie and Nick in communications, and we're going to talk about our accelerated water program, just like they were doing sewer separation a few years ago, and we're doing 10 miles of water main now. We're touching 1,000, 1,200 homes with the 10 miles of water main we're doing. So there's constantly a lot of communication, outreach going on with our customers, and I just wanted to touch upon that point with this slide. Back to all the committees we have in our department, we're constantly, some of these committees were here 20 years ago, and, the Material Standards Committee, we always had a manual for water services, but, over the years, as the department has evolved, we've developed new manuals, our guidance our new guidance documents for our new record drawing process. We have a construction inspection manual, a project delivery manual. I remember when I came in '97, there was not a lot of guidance for developers on how to get through our system. I, as an engineer, didn't even know. There was nothing for me to follow. So now we have manuals for people. They can get information on how to do this, and everything's standardized. And with that, I'd like to have Jen come up real quick, Jen Lagana. I think she's probably our most senior, not in age, but in years service to the district. I think you must have started when you were like 10, right, Jen? I think she has 30 years here to talk a little bit about development and what in technical services in our development group, what they specifically tackle every day.
Good evening, everyone. Like Susan said, I'm Jennifer Adalagana. I've been in the engineering department for 30 years, the majority of that in the development area. So I'd just like to go over what we in development do as part of our technical services department and engineering and planning department. Development work is a big one, obviously. We updated the guidance manual in 2020. We've added a couple of things, new things that help developers along with their projects, including an availability and capacity analysis. That shows us what their flows are proposed to be and if our system can handle it. We developed a schedule of charges that you can see off to the right-hand side of the slide. Gives our developers an idea of, depending on which way they go, what it's going to cost them to go through the process. Obviously, they have to follow our standard, our MDC design standards. We also supply them with a timeline for completion because it's very important in development to get your project complete within a timely manner so that you can get your project built. All of this is done through reimbursable accounts, one for water, one for sewer, or depending on the utility that you're building. That reimbursable account pays for our project engineer review time and inspection time. And this is all done expanding MDC infrastructure within the district at no cost to the district because we are reimbursed for all of our time. Also included in the development area, we tackle water and sewer petition projects, which you as the commissioners would know as a layout and assessment project. Those projects go through both bureaus and the full district board for approval, and those are property owners who are requesting the expansion of water and sewer facilities to serve their properties. Encroachment agreements, when a developer comes in or a property owner would like to expand or do something on their property that may encroach upon our existing facilities or easements. We create those agreements with them, and you as commissioners would also have to approve those through the Bureau and Board. We also provide oversight of projects that may interfere with MDC infrastructure, such as blasting near a raw water main. That's all part of our department in protecting the existing MDC infrastructure. And lastly, utility coordination with the towns and the DOT through their projects. They submit their plans to us, we review them to see if there's any safety concerns or conflicts with MDC utilities, and we resolve those with the towns and the DOT. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Next, I'm going to have Josh come up. I want him to talk about one of our really good programs is our paving program, and how that has grown over the years. And I'd like to have Josh talk to you about it. You know, we would go out and the town would pave a road, and the next year we would go out there and replace the water main, and it just kind of, we'd get, you know, angry towns, the people would be mad at us, and why'd MDC rip up our new road, or, you know, operations would have a main break after the town just paved a road. And what we're trying to do is get ahead of that now. And, you know, we're replacing service connections, we're looking at laterals now. So I want Josh to tell you a little bit more the details about what we do in our paving program. And he's going to talk about our some of the improvements we've also been doing, saving money installing water main, and that has to do with the supply of pipe that's out in West Hartford. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh McCulloch, as Susan said. Been with the district for 9 years. Prior to that, I was with CDM Smith working on the PMU and actually sitting on site here since 2010, working on the Clean Water Program and all the projects supporting that. My main role here right now as a senior project manager is support of the horizontal projects, water and sewer assets, so basically design and execution and coordinating with our operations team, utility services, construction, and trying to make everything kind of work cohesively and smoothly. So as Susan said, with the paving program, our main goal is to assess our water and sewer assets and perform all the needed repairs before the paving is done. And, you know, once we leave, we're not coming back to that street for a long time. The main thing that we do there is we've been getting better and better year after year. So we meet with all of the towns in advance around this time of year, so we know where they're planning on paving. And since we've been working with them now for the last few years, we're actually getting, you know, 3-year look ahead in some instances, which really allows us to plan ahead, work with the towns, move their schedule around if we have major projects that need to be implemented before they pave. And like Susan says, it makes for a much better appearance when we come in, take care of everything, and leave the street in a nice paved way at the end of the job. So we assess the CCTV of the sewer, the mainline sewer. We also review dye test logs and see if there's any depressions associated with the sanitary laterals. We are now working with our customers to offer a private lateral inspection on their end, so we can also address any of those issues before we leave the street. For the water side, we review our asset management information, so we know the age and break history of the main. And lastly, we focus on our wrought iron water services. Those are a real issue for us with the paving. They are very brittle and sensitive services, and so with any of the paving activity, many times we'll experience a leak from those and have to go out and do a repair either while they're paving or shortly thereafter. So in the past, we would only replace and renew those laterals that were associated with the road reconstruction work. But now, with all these planning efforts, we're able to work with operations, and so we went from, in the past, we would perform, perhaps 60 of those service renewals per year. And now we're replacing, on average, 170 of those water services throughout the district. And, we prioritize and work with operations to see, make sure we're kind of feeding them a steady diet of where the next streets are that they need to go and focus on. So with the sewer repairs, when we identify any repairs that are needed, we use our on-call sewer repair program. And in the last 3 years, we've completed over 18 miles of sewer repair and lining in coordination of the town paving program. As far as the water main replacements, in the last 3 years, we've replaced over 7 miles of water mains in coordination with that. And with that, there is a nice cost savings and, sharing of, we can just leave the main, the trench in a temporary repair, and then we coordinate with the towns to do the final repair. So that is a major benefit to us. So to speak to a few of the other cost-saving initiatives that we've been working on the last 5 years to support these projects. The first is soil disposal handling. In the past, we would evaluate the soils during design through our geotech and boring programs, and oftentimes when we would get into construction, unexpectedly, we would encounter additional zones of polluted material, contaminated material, and at that point, construction would stop, and we'd be into delay claims, change orders, and it was really difficult to execute projects in that way. So what we've done now is we went out to bid. We're 2 licensed facilities that specialize in receiving these materials. We have competitively bid pricing for clean, polluted, and contaminated soil, and that we were able to see 40% cost reduction in those rates from when we let our general contractors manage that work. So that's added up to over $4 million in savings in the last 5 years. We'll talk a lot about the accelerated water main program, and that is with our goal to get to 10 miles of water main replacement, we needed to become more nimble and be able to quickly react to mains that either operations is having issues with or overlap with the town paving program. So we have implemented what we call the accelerated water main replacement program. So we focus on quick win streets where it's a simple residential side street with minimal utility conflicts, and we can work with engineering and the existing GIS records and record drawings and coordinate with our operations crews and develop a plan and put it on a simple design and coordinate with the contractor in the field to get those mains built. In doing so, we don't need to spend money on consulting fees. This is all done in-house, and it's resulting in an estimated $6 million in savings in the last 5 years. Pavement restoration via the state contracts. This is another new initiative that we've been working on. So we leverage state pricing, which is much lower than what we were getting from our general contractors in the past, for not only we are purchasing the bituminous to go into our temporary trench repairs, and also the mill and overlay at the end of the job. We work with our procurement department, and they show us which is the lowest bid in each town, because it's different town by town, and then we work with the asphalt suppliers to coordinate that work. In many cases, we've also been able to partner with the towns. If we've only just disturbed one side of the roadway and we're going to replace one lane, we've been able to create cost-sharing agreements with them to take care of the other lane, and then now our residents and customers are getting an entire road repaired. Next is the pipe on the ground over at West Hartford Filters. So to address supply chain issues, in many cases, the lead time for our water main pipe is out 6, 8, and sometimes 12 months. In order for us to keep pushing forward and putting upwards of 10 miles of water main in the ground every year, we needed to adjust our approach and we have moved to an owner-supplied materials model. So we are purchasing all the materials for the contractors for our water projects in advance, and we are providing that to the contractors. So if we were to do it in the old way, if we were to bid a job and award it, they would then order the pipe, and there would be 6, 8, 12-month delays in those jobs. So now we're able to procure the material ahead of time. We're storing it temporarily at West Hartford Filters, and then we are giving it to the contractor at the time of award. So right now, out of West Hartford Filters, I have nearly the 10 miles that I need to build this year's water main projects, and I still have trucks arriving daily.
And nobody else has a water main.
That's right.
No lie. So this accelerated water main program was decided well, we started it well before COVID. But COVID, as we're purchasing this product, this material, for our purposes, then COVID hits, and all of a sudden, now we become the only game in town because we have the inventory that no one else does, and then the supply chain issues happen, and all of a sudden, we look really smart, right? And so now we're actually having, other companies saying, MDC, can you help us out? Because there's no other water main available in the industry. You guys have it all. So we're trying to work through those issues with the industry, but we want to make sure that we can keep our contractors working.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, and so the last thing I want to talk about is just using flagging services. So as we scale up our project work and we're doing 10 miles of water main and 10 miles of sewer lining, it's just becoming more and more difficult to fill police details. And so we've worked with the towns and have been able to hire flaggers in many instances for those projects, and that has resulted in a significant cost savings, roughly, $1 million a year, as opposed to filling all those details with just police officers.
Question for paving?
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the flaggers, do all of our member towns allow us to use flaggers, or are there towns that still require that we use policemen?
Yeah, Chris Levesque. Yes, so most of the towns have required streets, so the main arteries require officers for those, so each town has those lists. The city of Hartford has always had a requirement for an officer. Like all the police departments in all of our towns that we service, struggling with staffing and also filling those private job requirements. So we've been luckily to have great relationships with each police department. We've met with almost all of them. We've actually worked very well with the city of Hartford in identifying, okay, these are really our projects that we need support on, and we've seek to make sure that for those projects, even though they're slammed at making sure they can provide the officers just for the regular shifts, we've worked with them continuously to make sure, okay, if this isn't the job that you can provide, then we'll work with the flaggers, and they'll be able to work with us on that. So to answer your question, yes, they do have required streets that we always hire the officers for, and then even with those, we've been able to backfill with our flaggers on those projects as well, the ones that they can't provide duty for. But again, it's ensuring that we protect our workers as well as the pedestrians, as well as the vehicle traffic as well from our job site.
And in some cases, Commissioner Scott Jellison, we have both.
Yeah.
So in some cases, we have an officer from the town and we have a flagger team. I think.
Was there? Yes, there's a question concerning paving. You had mentioned that during your presentation that once you pave, you don't return for a long period of time. Do you discover, and when in your paving in the past, if there is a dip or a compression in that particular paving street, how fast do you come back to make that correction?
So we, operations, how many patches do you 1,000 a year, right? They're out there fixing pipes all over our 8-member towns all year, and we in engineering get the lucky job of coordinating the patching of those 1,000 breaks. So we have a system by which it makes a list. We go out and assess it, measure it. We have contractors, two separate contractors that handle our pavement patch program. Sometimes, yes, there's a few that might fall through the cracks, and we have to go back. We get notified on what nobody's fixed this for a while, and we'll go check on it. But for the most part, we've got a pretty robust system for tracking and patching those patches, and then we have to go back a year later and certify that they are still in acceptable shape.
What's the time frame? Thereabouts.
Yeah. 6 months?
Yeah, it's the rule on the main arteries, so like a Connecticut DOT road is within 5 to 10 days. So we'll do a permanent patch there. Most of it is, we'll do the patch based on our contractor's availability. So winters are difficult as far as getting the material to do the actual patches. But we're looking to do that within typically 2 to 3 months with the backlog that's always occurring. Luckily, right now with our 2 current contractors, we've been able to decrease that backlog. So we're getting ahead of the game. And typically what always happens is some of the private property stuff, if we have to replace a lateral or water services, sidewalks, we do make it safe. But sometimes it can be unsightly when you have concrete and then with a sort of a bituminous cold patch type patch.
Right.
But what we end up doing is we log those in. So within our command center and our operations group, they will go back and periodically patch those until our contractor can do the permanent restoration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Some of the longer ones will be like sidewalks or grass situations, because we have another contractor that does the grass areas, so that you're not going to do that in January.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if there's a break now, we're not getting out there till June or so, to get that reseeded.
Commissioner Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another question regarding blacktopping. Do any of our member towns require, when laying down a pipe the length of a street, to do a curb-to-curb paving?
We've been coordinating that with the towns. They weren't, there's certain requirements on how many cuts you make across the street for services, what volume of pavement you're using, of their old pavement, whether or not you do the whole street or not. But we've been coordinating with the towns, because we're preferring to leave the finished the whole street finished. And that's what Josh was talking about, working with the towns and saying, well, we only have to do this lane, but if you want to do both lanes, if you contribute some money, we'll do both lanes. And that's what we've really been doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just to follow, that conversation's happening essentially the year before. So when we're doing the town paving meetings with the towns and their public works and engineering, we're having that conversation as far as what we plan on if we're going to disturb half the road and any of the services crossing. How do you want to handle the restoration? What's your final restoration requirement?
If I may, Scott Jellison, just to add to this, this is seems like a simple process, but it's very complicated. Every town is guilty of this. They change their mind at the last minute of which roads they want to pave. And so we have to jump through hoops to try and accommodate that, and we do. And in some cases, I just met with DEP Friday to let them know that there's certain projects that we were going to do in Hartford that we didn't do because we're accommodating a paving program. So we did the same work, same lining work, but in different areas. So it's a benefit to the city, period, right? Whether we do this street or that street, but we're trying to accommodate the city's paving program so we don't have to blow up an existing road with an old sewer pipe collapse or an old water main collapse. So we try to work with our towns to make sure that we try to work. We're working right now. February is a time frame of saying, what's your paving program for April? May, what's June, what's your paving program? And by April or May, there's lots of changes that we're trying to accommodate, and we always, what we do try to say is, if we cannot get to that street to fix whatever needs to be fixed in that street before you pave, please don't pave it until next year. And that's really the communication that we have with our towns, and our group's done a great job, and the great rapport with our towns that they say, yes, let's do that next year. So
It's a lot of juggling, and, you know, in Hartford alone, I think we got 100 streets when we requested, what are you paving this year? We know they're not going to pave 100 streets, you know, so then we've got to work with the city and go and further, you know, trim that list down, or if looking at the list, we know ahead of time, hey, don't do that street. We know we're putting a water main there. You know, wait, hold off another year. So we're constantly looking at that. So it is a lot of juggling. Just back to, we were talking about flaggers and policemen and just overall traffic. And again, this was another business process improvement that really was spawned by the Clean Water Project when they were doing those large separation projects out in Hartford. You know, we had contractors working on multiple streets at a time and just coordinating ahead of time. You know, what the traffic patterns would be, providing information online for people to use so that they knew about traffic, working with outreach, construction notices ahead of time so people would know what was going on in their neighborhood. Again, we talked about outreach, but traffic and outreach really have been huge, have really grown over the past few years on how we use them. So again, we've already talked about the accelerated water main, but this, you know, back in 2017 is really when we kicked this program off. We worked, engineering worked with procurement, we worked with operations, and we all sat down together and said, how are we going to put more water main in the street, because this graph is a water main leaks, not in the winter, but in the off months. So you could see the trend, basically the average going up since 2000, and we need to try to get ahead of that curve. So I can only imagine if we weren't doing our 10 miles a year, you know, starting in 18, we probably did 6 in 18, but how that curve could have even gone up even higher without all the water main that we've replaced over the last 5-6 years. And again, Josh was sharing some of the cost savings with you. Back in 2017, when everything was done by separate contract, each water main project was its own contract. You know, we were paying over $600 a foot for water main replacement. Now with our accelerated program, you can see how we've brought the prices more in line, and we're saving a lot of money. And then this is really interesting. This is a little bit what I was alluding to in the beginning. The yellow line is basically the total water main installed by year. The green is the replacement main. So you can see back in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 5, that was all developer jobs. You see the green down the bottom? That's what your engineering department was doing back then. Okay? They were putting in 0.4, 0.2, 0, 0.5, 1 mile. Okay? You had the real estate crash in 07, 08, so the developer, you could see the developer jobs slowed down there. But look what we've been doing since 2017, 2018, we grew the program, and how we're replacing so much main now. So this is really goes to show you how, you know, back then, how development services was very busy. Our CIP execution was not so much, and what we're executing now. And Jason, do you want to come up and talk about, on the wastewater side, what we're doing as far as rehabilitation of our sewer mains?
Thanks, Susan. Sorry. The bar chart on the bottom shows footage of pipe that was either rehabilitated or replaced starting in 2008 through 2022. You'll see two large bumps in 2010 and 2009. Those actually came as a result of some early consent decree required projects that we had to do. We had an SSCS study that we had to do, and then we had to basically line the pipes that met EPA's criteria for that study. But you'll see after 2010, there was a large drop in how much footage we were repairing or rehabilitating. The projects that were going on from that point up until 2016 were really the sewer separation projects, those large sewer separation projects in Hartford. And then when those projects finished in the 2015 to 2016 timeframe, the amount of footage of sewer that we were repairing or rehabilitating dropped down. With the impetus of the long-term control plan and integrated plan in 2018, where we identified, rehabilitating our system as a means of CSO control, which will come up again in a couple more slides. We've been ramping up the amount of footage that we've been mainly lining in the last couple of years. In the last, like Josh mentioned, I think it was 18 miles in the last 3 years related to our paving program. In our on-call sewer program in the last 2 years, it was approximately 25 miles of pipe. And that's in similar fashion to the accelerated water. The on-call sewer program is really more a response to member towns' paving schedules where, we may find out in March that this is what they're paving in April. That doesn't give us the time frame to put out a traditional design, bid, build type of project. So we have 3 contractors that are in our on-call sewer program. We'll identify those streets that need sewer repair work in advance of a member town's paving program. And within a period of about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the scope of work, we have a price from the contractor, and then typically within a couple weeks of the contractor's on the ground starting, which is much significantly less of a time frame compared to a typical design bid build. And then the chart on the right shows how much rehab work we are going to have to do as part of the integrated planning program. You'll see it's another 33% of the system, which is basically going to work out to an average of about 10 to 15 miles of sewer rehab going forward per year, really for the foreseeable future.
Jay, Scott Jolson, just to go back to that slide, really important. Jay mentioned 2017, 18, 19, 20. So what does that represent? That represents building a big tunnel. We're not separating. The solution to our consent decree is to build a big tunnel to collect the overflows, and so that's why we're not doing a lot of separation. It's one or the other, right? And while you're not doing a lot of separation, you're not putting in a lot of water main. When we were doing our separation projects in the 2010 to 2013 timeframe, we're putting in new storm pipes, new sewer pipes, and at the same time, we're putting in new water pipe. So that really represents the tunnel in those years.
On this slide, there's a couple things going on here. On the right-hand side is a screenshot of our materials list. This is something that is managed by our materials committee. It's a committee that meets periodically, a couple times a year, depending on, or more frequently if things come up. That committee is a group of engineering, construction, technical services, operations, utility services members. So it's really, it's all aspects of the district, whether it be those who are going to be watching it get installed on the ground, the engineers that are specifying a product, or operations who gets to use the product afterwards. That's your group that determines what types of products can go into, that get approved for use on a district project. And then the screenshot on the bottom is another example of utilizing technology to basically improve our efficiencies. It comes from a software called Project Site, which we implemented back in, I think, 2020, where it is used during the construction phase. Contractors have their own login, and it's all of the MDC staff, whether it be the construction manager, the project manager, or management analysts, they all have access to this too. And what this software allows us to do is it's a more improved way of getting documents back and forth to the respective parties, whether it be the engineer, the owner, or the contractor. And those documents could be RFIs, submittals, proposed change orders, or whatnot. And it also shows how long documents are sitting there. You know, is the submittal approaching its 30-day limit for review? That type of thing. But again, it's another tool in our toolbox for managing our projects.
So back to the management study, they had talked about the integrated planning process, which has nothing to do with our integrated plan, but it was just, happens to be the same terminology used in the management study. But, really talking about, how that applies to engineering, I think is how we prioritize projects. Back in the day, we had engineers working out in the operational departments, not working for the engineering department. They worked for the facility departments or for operations, and there was no prioritizing capital improvement projects. Now what we're doing is engineering and planning, is consulting, we're collaborating with the facilities and operations groups, we're developing the master planning together, we're vetting projects, but engineering is really guiding that process through and determining how we move forward and which projects we have money for and which have to be held off another year or two because, cash flow purposes, that sort of thing. We've also, over the past couple of years, set up a portfolio review board where once the projects are going through and they're approved by the board for authorization, we go back to basically all the directors in the MDC. We're all on this, and with Kelly and Chris on this portfolio review board, and before we spend a penny on a project, it's getting discussed with all the directors. We're all looking at it to see if it's fitting in our cash flow and if it's the best project to move forward on. So we've really honed those processes over the past couple of years and getting more people involved in how we move things forward. I know Scott talked about at the board meeting a week or so ago about projects, and we really, this is talking about the management study, not so much about the projects we do, but we just wanted to give you a little flavor of some of the things going on now. We brought some plans down here to show you some of the complicated water main work that we've got going on right now. But these are just, and we have a handout somewhere. Okay, we provided the handout of the list of current projects we have in design or in construction or planning phases, so that you get a feel for, this is just this year, the projects that we have going on right now. And these listed up here, we have regulatory things going on. We're trying to move forward with the raw water master plan. We're going to be coming to you in the next few months with some ideas on that project. We have our lead and copper rule inventory that we're going on right now, a huge regulatory requirement we have to finish with for EPA by October of 2024. Of course, we have a long-term control plan, an integrated plan and the projects that basically make up our consent order. And then, in design, I mean, look at those are just the large projects we listed up there. So we have a very busy group and moving forward on a lot of things. Jason, you want to come back up? He's just going to highlight, here we go again. Oh, there it goes.
Before you start, Jay, Commissioner Gale asked for a list of all the projects that we're doing. We do have a copy of that, right?
Yeah, it was handed out.
Oh, you got it out? Everybody's got it? Okay, great.
It came late.
Victoria has more copies, I think.
Yeah, and that is an active list. So every year, we look at every project that's been approved by the board. We look at where it is in the process and whether or not it still holds the same priority that it had the year before. And if it doesn't get put on the list, and we may bring that back to the Board of Finance and we may close out that project. And we do that as a regular part of our process. Sometimes a town says we're going to pave that road, we're going to reconstruct the road, which means they completely rip up the entire road in a subbase, and then for some reason that changes. And so we're constantly changing our priorities based on tomorrow's crisis, right? Just trying to stay within that cash flow of 75 to 90 million bucks.
Thank you. The next couple slides you've got, a lot of you have probably seen multiple times already. This slide on the screen is really just showing the highlighted evolution of the long-term control plan as a consent order. The long-term control plan is basically the consent order roadmap for how we comply. The first plan was submitted in 05, second plan in 12, and the third in 18. That's the integrated plan. We essentially went from a full separation as a solution to we're going to build a lot of tunnels to a plan that really is a combination of the two, where it's separation and tunneling. On this slide, this is one that I know has definitely been shown in this boardroom many times. It's a pictorial of what the integrated planning process was, which is basically a combination of our needs assessment, our regulatory needs, which is volume 2, which is what do we got to do for the consent order, and then an affordability analysis, which then led us to a schedule of a ranking of projects, and that ranking of projects was done in conjunction with Deep in the Room. So there was a lot of, and we had other various stakeholders within the district coming up with that. And then this last slide, just the main highlight on this is since 2007, we've averaged over $100 million a year of spend just on the consent order, consent decree projects alone. That's in addition to capital spending and support of developer projects. We couldn't have done that without a lot of heavy lift within the engineering department. So this is just highlighting the volume of work that we've done in the last 10 years just on the consent order and consent decree.
All right, and I'd like Alex Cosentino, Senior Project Manager, to come up and talk to you about some of our energy management initiatives that we've been working on over the past several years.
Good evening. Alex Cosentino here. As indicated, energy management is integral to controlling energy costs and the district's primary mission of protecting the environment. Although we're talking about energy management here with the engineering department, energy management is something that really touches almost every department within the district. It's something that's district-wide. The elements of our energy management program include what's listed there. First and foremost, about every 3 years, we conduct electricity and natural gas third-party procurements. Those are provided those are done to provide stable and predictable energy costs. We conduct facility project green alternatives evaluations for many of our facility capital improvement projects. These are to identify energy-saving technologies such as heat pumps, lighting, and to optimize control strategies. We also identify energy efficiency incentives through the utilities through those alternative evaluations. One program, one program that we did participate in last year was through Eversource. It was called the Strategic Energy Management Program. Basically, it was an Eversource-sponsored program, whereas we conducted baseline energy reviews and energy modeling for selected water and wastewater treatment facilities. The district also reviews the financial benefits afforded through programs like demand response and capacity tag programs. We'll evaluate those often in conjunction with the electricity procurement programs, and those are done in conjunction with our facilities department, as most of those programs take place at our water pollution control facilities. Finally, one of the things that we've been evaluating is virtual net metering and how we can get involved in those programs as well. I'll be talking, on the next slide, I'll be talking more about renewable energy and distributed generation evaluations. So the district has reviewed many different types of distributed generation and renewable energy potential options for our facilities, including wind and solar. As you can see up there, one of the items that we did do was we installed a solar array at our Pequannock water pollution control facility. That's actually a 15-year PPA, which is a power purchase agreement. We entered into a contract with what was Solar City, which is now Tesla, and we are buying all the energy that is produced at that solar array. It's a 320 kW system. It produces just about the same amount of energy that is consumed at the Pequannock Water Pollution Control Facility. And at the end of their year runs from March to April, so about every March we receive a small, what's called a net metering credit, which is based on the surplus energy that we've created there. This slide here, one thing that we also do, as talked about earlier, is we participate in utility incentive and grant programs. The district takes advantage of these utility incentive programs wherever possible. These are usually rebate type incentives, where they'll reduce the project cost and provide immediate savings, and then those projects result in immediate energy savings. And as you can see, there's a ROI that's listed in the right column there. Usually those on lighting projects, you can predict right away what kind of energy they're going to save, and then also what the payback for those projects will be. Finally, as Susan mentioned earlier, one of the newest initiatives here in the engineering department was the creation of a reliability and maintenance engineering group. Currently, there's 3 engineers, including myself, that are part of that department, and we provide engineering support for the facilities and maintenance groups. Those are basically the WPCFs, the water treatment plants, and the pump stations. This has provided greater integration of engineering into the maintenance function. We work closely with the maintenance staff on operational issues associated with equipment, including pumps, instrumentation and control systems, and then electrical and HVAC equipment. One of the ultimate goals of the reliability maintenance engineering group is what we call reliability centered maintenance, and basically that's where we try to determine the requirements of maintenance at the exact current operating conditions or context of a certain piece of equipment. And as stated there, the intention there is to perform the right maintenance at the right time, and that's the most effective use of maintenance dollars. So this is how we've better integrated engineering into those departments. Thank you.
Just Scott Jelson. This is a really important group because one of the biggest concerns that operations had of engineering was the facility groups were concerned that engineering didn't understand their needs, right, their priorities, and creating a engineering group specifically within engineering to oversee and fight for and advocate for their projects as part of this process was really important, right? So before, as we talked about, engineering wasn't really doing its job in the 2000s, and now we're trying to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table, not just the water main and sewer mains in the streets, but the facility projects as well. Alex, good job. You're a mechanical engineer, right?
Did you hear that?
I did.
Just back to the management study, I'd like Dave Banker to come up and talk about some of the revenue improvement teams and some of the work we've been doing on meter management.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Banker, Senior Project Manager. I've been with the district 16 years or so, off and on. So one of the things I wanted to start by emphasizing here is team. So this is not myself or just one person or 2 people at the company here. This goes across departments, customer service, utility services, district clerk, other folks that we've worked with along the way on reviewing and making sure that we're capturing all the revenue that we're due and implementing our charges fairly. So I'll just start with touching on cross connections. So anywhere where there's a potential of contaminating the water system from the customer side, there's a cross connection device required. Depending on that risk, we have to do 1-year or 5-year inspections of those locations. Previously, we weren't getting paid from those customers that require those inspections at all. So we implemented, depending on a 1-year or 5-year, there's a charge that's directly applied to their water bill. So that we're currently paying for some of the staff within that cross connections department that have to actually do the work of the inspections. Next on the list, I'll touch on fire services. So fire services, we tied the monthly fire service charges to our customers more appropriately to the actual capacity of the service, and that's related to the cross-sectional area of the pipe. So that adjustment was made over a few years to the customer accounts and increased our revenue from those fire protection charges. Combo services, so these are combination fire and domestic water services. So one pipe going to a property, it's not allowed anymore for new customers, but there are grandfathered customers out there. We previously weren't charging a fire service charge to them, so they're just paying the water service meter charge. So working with utility services department to perform those inspections, verify those combo services, and then with the customer service department, we implemented those fire protection charges to those customers. Jennifer already touched on DPAs, so we work to recoup any of our costs to the district and charge back to those developer accounts for any new water mains or sewers extended for developer projects. And then also our interconnected or contract accounts, so these are the Connecticut Waters, Portland, any of those customers. Some of them we have specific contracts saying what can and cannot be charged, other ones we don't, so we completed a review of those and then made sure that we had the appropriate charges applied to those accounts as well. Now, one of the things I want to touch on moving forward is Susan mentioned LCRR. What I'll just simplify that as, nope, sorry, stay on that slide. What I'll simplify that as is a water and sewer service account inventory. So we're going to we're reviewing every one of our water and sewer service cards, and then we're establishing who has a water connection, drawing that pipe to the property. Same thing on the sewer service, whereas the sewer connections, drawing that to the property line. This is going to be, a 1.5 year long process to complete this. That project is starting right now, but the important emphasis of this is we'll be also doing the same thing for water and fire services. So we'll be verifying that, making sure that we're charging all of our customers appropriately. I can tell you right now also we have sewer customers who are only sewer customers. They don't have a water account. So right now those sewer-only customers do not receive a separate bill from the district. So we have that monthly sewer service charge that we're going to be working on implementing as we work our way through the system, setting up those customers that are sewer-only customers in the MDC system as new customers, and implementing that charge. Another potential moving forward that we have to work on is the possibility of a clean water program charge for sewer-only customers. Same lines, we bill right now only based on water consumption, so those sewer-only customers don't currently pay any type of clean water program charge. And lastly, there'll be another discussion at the BPW meeting. We have SIU and MIU. These are kind of permitted sewer discharge customers, so there'll be further review of the discharges from those customers to ensure that they're receiving the appropriate high-strength sewer discharge fees, depending on what they are discharging to our system. So next, we're touching on our water meter reading system. So I've been involved in this program since 2009. Started off with Scott down there at operations on our first large-scale meter replacement program with our Itron system. So prior to that project and its completion, we were still reading some of our customers with our meter readers walking down the road, walking up to homes, touching little touch pads outside, sometimes going in basements. We were sending postcards to our customers, asking them to fill out their meter read on the card and send it back to us. There are all these different aging meter systems, and our estimation rate was probably around 40% at that time. So there are customers we hadn't been in. We've gotten a good meter read from them in over 5 years. So this is a priority project. We're also reading the meters and billing customers quarterly at that point. So then if there's a customer issue or leak or high usage, they wouldn't, it's a longer period for them to go or try to remember where you're using water 3 months ago. We were installing mechanical meters at that point, which, there's the best technology right out there at that point, but the meters tend to slow down over time, so they will under-register or not record as much for those lower flows on the customer side. We had a paper work order system in which the meter installers would go out to the customers, residents, fill out the information for the meter being removed, the off-free, blah, 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 and then at the end of the day, they put their stack in there. That stack would go over to customer service, and it could take 2 weeks or more for those changes to make their way into the system. So it could be a lengthy process, and then every now and then, you know, a piece of paper slips off a desk and could get lost in the system. And also we had 65 reading cycles, which were developed back around old walking routes where they drive a van out, have 4 guys get out and go house to house to try to get those meter readings. So currently, over the past, 14 years, we've, completed, many modernizations of that system. Now we're completely on a drive-by meter reading system. All the meters that we're installing now are ultrasonic, which can pick up even the very, low flow readings on the customer side. They don't have any mechanical parts that will slow down or wear as they turn around or rotate to record that water usage. We've used an electronic work order system so that those the meter replacements are uploaded daily. So they basically immediately go to the customer's account, and we've gone to monthly billing, and when we made that change to monthly billing, we consolidated down to 21 reading cycles, so down to basically 1/3 of what we had before, because as we are doing drive-by readings, it's much more efficient, and we basically change those routes also so that we can try to define it by, standard areas within a town. So north of I-84 to Park Road, that's, one meter reading cycle. So for the drive-by meter readers, it's a, far easier way to try to break down their work for the reading. Now, as we move forward, going into the future, we're looking to move to fixed networks so that there'll be basically no one has to go out to the customer's accounts anymore. They'll be transmitted over the radio, and it will go to a cell phone tower or to a fixed network system, providing daily and or hourly readings of the customer's usage. When we make this change also, we'll be able to then meter portions of our system and then compare the amount of water going into a part of our water system versus how much the water the customers are using. So this is referred to as district metering. That then can help improve our leak, finding and leak location efforts moving forward. So we can target areas with higher leakage, try to find those leaks before they become really big main breaks, and also just reduce the amount of water that's lost. And also just making available the ability for customers to track their water usage with those daily or hourly readings via a customer portal. Just a couple other items I wanted to touch on. So we've replaced 99.5% of our customers' meters over the past 14 years. We have that less than 1%, that 0.5% that didn't want to let us in. So one of the current programs we have going in coordination with operations and customer service and finance, we're going to those customers and we're installing meter pits. Operations is at the property line so that then we no longer need access to their house or within the home to replace the meter, track their, record their usage and obtain readings. This is, just to basically get them off the list at this point because it's been 15 years and they haven't let us in and we've tried repeatedly. After that, we have fire meter pit installations. So where we've started installing basically meters on fire services. The ultrasonic meters don't have any moving parts. They don't have any constrictions. So they're what's called FM rated. They're rated for installation on fire services where you want to. And when we originally started the program, we're like, oh, we're not going to see any usage. Well, we've seen consistent usage on several customers. One of them's used 10,000 gallons a month or more on their fire service. So it's been a bit eye-opening. We've completed a pilot where we could actually convert our existing meter reading network out there and basically read probably 50 to 60% at least of those customers hourly or daily using Connecticut Natural Gas's network. So that's another presentation we'll have upcoming to the Water Bureau. And lastly, I just touched on real quick that water and sewer service inventory. So, more to come, potentially identifying more services there.
Oh, yeah, the difference between the displacement and the ultrasonics, but easier. Yeah.
So for the larger sizes,
The residential
you
meter.
can actually look down here. There's no constriction. There's no moving parts. For the ultrasonic meters, for the larger sizes, there's just 2 spots, one here at the front, one here at the back, where there's an ultrasonic wave that just shot out and bounces up, and that will basically tell the meter the velocity of the water through the project.
It's regular
So we
meter.
measured it twice on these meters just to verify the accuracy, make sure that it's records well. Just while I'm here, we've also, we won't speak to these, but I mean, this is a high frequency pressure recording device that we've used on our system. It actually takes 120 pressure readings per second. And the reason for that is we can have pressure transients, or when water is moving like a freight train down a pipe at 500, 1,000 gallons per minute or more, and something shuts it down, or it starts that flow immediately, you can end up with a pressure wave, basically a shock wave that'll go through the system. And then when that wave hits, it'll find a dead end spot and it'll blow out our water main or something on the customer side potentially. So we use this out in our system to monitor our own facilities, and then if you have a question, you can install it out to monitor someone's fire service test on the CO2. And then this is also another new technology where we're going to be, we just advertised, we got the bids in, so we'll be awarding a contract. This is a correlating device that can be installed on hydrants throughout the system, and install basically like every other hydrant 1,000 feet apart. And this will listen on its own to the water main around it twice a day. But it'll also wake up at 3 a.m. with the other devices every 1,000 feet away, listen and try to correlate for any leaks. This way we can also work to identify any of those water main leaks before they become a large catastrophic leak.
Any questions for Dave?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. When we put that meter pit in and we bypass the pit, the meter in the home, what happens to that meter in the home, eventually if it's never replaced?
So we make an appointment to remove the meter from the home. We try to do it at that time, because also when we install the meter pit, you can always potentially get a little bit of debris or something in the line, so we want to flush the service. If not, then we'll come back at a later time. We remove the meter, and then we just put a piece of straight pipe, and usually we'll give them a nice new valve on that water service, so like a 1-inch valve where the meter used to be inside the house.
Okay, but if they haven't let us in all those years and maybe they don't do it now,
Yep.
what would eventually happen? It would fail and
No,
flood, or?
sorry. We haven't shut any, well, no, we shut off a few people. But we've only gone through 3 other towns where actually, I think the only shut-offs might have been in Windsor. But you end up down to single digits, and then we've shut those customers off. When you get to that point also, a lot of times, sometimes they're abandoned or vacant homes. So then for those, the water service is still shut off to that property until a new owner comes in or the property changes hands. Then we'll make sure that we get in there to change the meter at that point.
Very good.
The idea is that we can't have 2 meters in one property, so before we put the new meter in, start taking readings on that. We'll grab the old one, so the accounting matches up, so when we take the old one, we'll get that meter read. We don't want to count twice for the same amount of water.
Got it.
Hey, this is Commissioner Bush. What percentage of the meters now are these ultrasonic?
Regular.
Let's see, well, I don't have those numbers for you right here, but for the 1-inch to 2-inch size, which is in the middle there, or 1.5 inch and 2-inch size, we've been installing those since 2016. The sizes above that, 3-inch and larger, since 2018, and then the 5/8 inch, and the size is going up from there. We started in 2020 with the last meter contract.
And the 5/8 inch are the residential?
Yes, those are the standard residential size.
And is there an accuracy difference? I mean, how are you noticing that there's customers who are noticing differences in their bills, more or less accurate with the ultrasonic versus the other ones?
So the accuracy really tends to be on the very low flows. So like the kind of drip from the faucet type of leaks. So those those over the lifespan of the meter will add up to a significant amount. But for the customer side, when they look at their water bill, they're small enough that it's not drastically changing it.
But ultrasonic is much more accurate.
Yes.
On those low flows. Scott Chelson, just to add to this is a really important point, and I want, we've talked about this, about engineering leading the charge, leading the direction of the MDC. And so if you look at 2003 or 1997, when Susan left engineering, the engineering department back then didn't understand any of this. And now we have the engineering department leading the charge on this topic. It's just a very important, subtle point that our engineering department is the one designing and managing these issues rather than operations having to do it on their own without any support. So it's a very important point.
Can I just have one additional follow-up question? Will the new ultrasonic meters, these are going to be read, will they be able to provide leak information directly to the owner of the property?
Yes, so when you open up the top of it, there are different flags or different signs that will pop up. So one of those is a water drop if there's a leak on the customer side, so a leak picked up on the on their side of the meter. So if the meter's in their basement and they look at that lid, they'll be able to see the water drop indicating a potential leak on their side.
I'm sorry, I've one additional.
I'll just follow up, sorry. Okay. Commissioner Bush. Where we're going with the customer portal, if the customer signs up within that portal, they would be automatically notified if the meter detects a leak. So they should know, and the logic behind it is it's continuous use over 24 hours for 7 days straight, right?
Yeah.
Where that would indicate and automatically send them a message to say, we believe you have a leak in your property. Please call us. We'll help you try to find it.
In the portal, is that the Cubra? Is that?
No, it'll be a new portal that we're.
That's not currently available.
Yeah, and we're going to present more detail at the next water briefing.
All right, and I'm sorry, just one additional. The new meters in the pits are located close to the property line or near the street. The old meters were located in the basement, and I'm sure that there were many leaks that occurred between the street and the old meter. Have there been any issues with people who now, once you've put the new meter pit in, discovered that the pipe from the new meter to the foundation of the house actually has leaks that they weren't aware of before? Has that been an issue for anybody? Is that?
It hasn't been an issue, but we have, I believe it's probably less than a handful that have identified a leak within that section of buried pipe from basically the property line to the house. But whether it's through our lien program or working with the property owner, locating it with them, and then having it addressed. So ultimately, we want to not waste water, and if it was wasting water and not being monitored or identified previously, but yeah, that is one advantage of addressing that quicker with the customer. Before, typically we find them and they're not become catastrophic where they still have water service, can address the leak without losing a morning without showers.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any commissioner?
Thank you.
All right, we're going to keep going. I want to get this in under 2 hours, okay? So these next two slides, this slide and the next one, we've really touched upon these things already, Jay. We're all set here. Just they're reiterations of what we've already discussed in a lot of detail already, so I'm not going to get into it. I want to spend time. I want to get Alan up here. Let's see. Talked about this. I really want to get Alan up here now. We've mentioned how engineering is coordinating and collaborating with the other departments, such as, facilities and operations. And I just want Alan, I want you to meet Alan Pelletier, Senior Project Manager, him to come up and show you just some of the large projects we've been doing at our water pollution control facilities over the past few years.
Good afternoon, Alan Pelletier, Senior Project Manager. Been with the district for 20 years. Started with some SSO projects, CSO projects, pump stations. Eventually found myself over at the treatment plant. Been doing that exclusively or predominantly since 2010. First slide here is about the key successes to the projects I'm about to present. Susan asked me to present a few projects that we've done. Key success is really collaboration with other MDC departments, and particularly the WPCF staff and the maintenance staff. We invite them to all of our design submittals, our workshops, and they have a seat, and they provide input, and they provide experience and lessons learned so that we end up with a better design. But it doesn't end there. They also participate throughout the construction process. They help review the submittal so that we get a better level of construction projects. They participate in key workshops in the, in the structure of our control strategies and SCADA controls. They also participate in training workshops for our the review of equipment, new equipment, the safety. And another thing is that we collect all this information on all this new equipment and facilities, and we incorporate that data into our SAP system in terms of preventive maintenance program, and also our E-O&M data system for our system operators. This is a project at the Hartford Treatment Plant. It's the influent pump station. It was completed about 8 years ago, I believe. It's one of the key projects in the Clean Water Program. It basically increased the wet water capacity at the Hartford plant. You got some pictures here. The very first one up there is the submersible pumps, the 42 MGD submersible pumps. The next one is from going clockwise, is the fine screens, a 1/4-inch fine screens. You got some gantry cranes that are used to lift those submersible pumps out of the wet well, or the dry well, I should say. We also have some vortex grit collectors. We have 3 very large generators there that basically power, at some point, the entire plant, almost. And then, of course, that's the overall facility. It's a very large facility. Next one. Right after the influent pump station, part of the increase of the wet weather capacity at the Hartford plant is the construction of the dual-use primaries. What was constructed was 8 dual-use primary tanks. They're for both dry and wet weather. They replaced the older dry-only, smaller primary tanks, and it also involved the installation of a chemical storage building, which stores the chemical that's used in the dousing of the during wet weather flow. 2 electrical buildings, the construction of the wet weather disinfection tanks, a new effluent pump station, and you got the aerials of it during construction and completed, $154 million. Next, still in Hartford, we have the DAF project, which was just completed. It's one of several projects recently completed that really geared towards the solids treatment at the the Hartford treatment plant, which is a significant revenue source. This involved the renovation of our 4 DAF tanks, which the equipment there was approaching 50 years old, so we basically replaced all the process, mechanical and electrical and control components of the DAF tank, about $14 million. Next. This is the tunnel pump station, which is in progress. It's been in progress for about a year, and it's part of the Clean Water Program. It's basically the dewatering of the tunnel. It basically pumps the water from the tunnel to the influent pump station, which we just looked at. It's the construction of a subsurface pump station, approximately 200 feet below grade, installation of 4 large pumps for 800 horsepower pumps, 2 large generators, installing 2,100 feet of 54-inch force main, connecting that pump station to the influent pump station. Also, the grit and screening facilities and odor control, $115 million. Next.
Chairman, quick question. Where's that pump located, the location of that?
Right next to 240 Brainerd Road, 231 Brainerd Road.
The South Meadows, down South Meadows. Yeah, South Meadows.
Moving to East Hartford, we have 2 projects, Phase 3A and 3B. These 2 projects were basically to improve the nitrogen discharge from this plant and also provided a complete electrical upgrade. Phase 3, which was completed, installed a new main switchgear. You can see that in the center photo. Installed new blowers on the right-hand side. And then we have 3B, which is in progress. We just issued a notice to proceed to the contractor not too long ago. They'll finish up the rest of the electrical upgrades at the treatment plant and also improvements in the aeration tanks to improve nitrogen discharge, $15 million for both projects. Rocky Hill, a nice aerial view of the project. This was a fairly extensive rehab of that plant. I think it was completed in 2015. This was basically designed for as part of the mitigation or reduction, I should say elimination of SSOs as part of the EPA consent decree, basically increasing the wet weather capacity of that plant, also incorporating components for reducing nitrogen, new aeration tanks, new blowers, and as you can see, new clarifiers. It really touched almost every component of that treatment plant, and that was like $54 million in design and construction. Finally, Pequannock. This is a project that is in progress right now. We're basically designing a project that will basically provide a pretty extensive upgrade to that treatment plant. It hasn't seen one in a long time. It will basically replace aging equipment, improve its resiliency, and also help in terms of regulatory compliance. It's also going to address the nitrogen discharge from this plant by installing a move-in bed bioreactor MBBR, installing some new fine screens, replacement of the electric system at the treatment plant, also putting in new media on in the trickling filters to help with regulatory compliance, converting the sludge digesters into sludge storage tank. The estimated cost is $20 million. That's it.
Thank you.
So these are just some of the projects that, you know, besides the 10 miles of water main, besides all the sewer rehabilitation that we're doing, just a couple of $20 million projects snuck in here and there. And we're, like I said, engineering is trying to, you know, prioritize these projects so that we maintain our spend. You know, the $75 million rule was established back in 2016. We're doing like 85, 90, 93 million a year. You know, so it's really timing these projects so that, okay, don't bid that one until June because we can't have too much spend this year on it, and we're juggling all these projects but trying to get Tom his needed upgrades to the facilities that they need. And then we got a couple slides here. Just want to show you how we're using technology to assist in our project development. So Dave's going to talk about our water model here real quick.
Hi everyone, Dave Banker. So just want to keep you up to date. We have a water model of our full distribution system. We developed it over 10 years ago. We just completed our most recent update last December. So that model takes all of our customers' consumption and applies it to their closest pipe, which then traces all the usage back to our water treatment plants. So within that model, we have 3 different scenarios. Maximum day, which is the highest usage day within the summertime. So think of that, super hot July day. Everyone's watering their lawns, everyone's filling the pool, everything else. There's an average day, which is just basically the 365 days, your kind of average of the year, and a minimum day, which would be like the middle of winter. People aren't. They're not bathing as much. They're definitely not watering outside. Your minimum usage throughout the system there. So why is this important? So we use our water model when we have new developers come in. This is the most predominant use. Someone wants to build a building or a new development. They'll provide what their estimated water demands are and what their fire demands are going to be. And then we can take those numbers and review the effect on our water system in the model. The other important usage is when we're looking at potential outages, either for planned work or when we have the emergencies that come up. So the 54-inch transition main break we had on I-84 last August. One of the first things I was doing that afternoon was I opened up the water model and I was communicating with operations and our folks on changes we have to make to our distribution system in order to backfeed the leak area and maintain service to our customers. So definitely, front and foremost, we need the water model for those types of changes. And then we can also use it to review any improvements or updates to our system we want to make. Should we connect these 2 pipes? Should we upsize this main, downsize it? And then seeing how those affect the performance of the piping. I also wanted to touch on one of the things we've implemented in the past several years is HOCWIM. So this is actually mostly done by Bob Raskowski and our water lab, but I implemented basically, this is a data collection system that can take data from multiple places. It'll pull the data from our SCADA system, which monitors our pump stations, treatment plants on the water side. So I use the HOCWIM system to pull in the flow data for our pump stations, what's produced at the plant, what's the pressure coming into the pump station, what is it going out of, and it's just a very good tool for taking that data in and then putting it into a report. So you can see every day with this pump station this month, what were the flows going through the pump station, how much water did our customers use, and then you can compare that. So you can have a comparison, what was the same time last year. So are we using more or less water? Are the numbers off? If the numbers are off, is it the water meter in the pump station, or the customer is using more water? So then I can go and compare it to the actual, billed water usage we have for the customers to see what the source may be of that issue. So it's wonderful because once you set it up, you can pull these reports and just do it over and over and over. You can look at every month, every day, every time period you want to. I use it. It's available for our maintenance folks as well. And we also use it for our reporting for our diversion permits and other numbers we have to give to the state every year. So that's all I have. I'll turn it over to Jason for the sewer modeling.
Don't need it yet. I'll need it after the slide. This slide is actually one of my favorite slides. I could probably talk for 45 minutes on it, but I'll try to keep it to 10. So our sewer model really started out of our consent decree. We had to have a model of our collection system, and then over the last 15 years, it's really been expanded and calibrated. It's becoming a really powerful tool. We have worked with CDM over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 years to develop a web-based system where it essentially runs the model every day and then compares the model to actual data coming in from our CSO and SSO regulators in the collection system. And what that tells us is, is the system performing the way the model expected? If the answer is yes, that's fine. If the answer is no, then we have to figure out why. It could be that the model needs additional tweaking and calibration in that area, or it could be something along the lines, which is more common, and we have done this, where there's something in the system that is not performing the way the model was calibrated to, and that could be a blockage, that could be debris, that could be a pipe collapse. And we have used this system to find those types of scenarios. Additionally, we're now working on this pipecast system to integrate predictive radar, where it will actually predict sewer surcharges and sewer backups and sewer overflows. We're in the early stages of that right now, so it's not something we're using on a daily basis, but we're still tweaking it. And then the second part of the screen, before I actually go into the two different systems, is a system called IT Pipes. IT Pipes is something that was developed between engineering and GIS and operations a couple of years ago, where historically, when our crews had gone out and TV inspected a sewer, and they're TV inspecting, approximately 5 to 10% of our collection system every year, the TV videotapes, I'll use videos in quotes, would be on a DVD, and that DVD would be in a log. And if an engineer or project manager or anyone wanted to know the condition of a sewer, say on a TV inspection that was done a year or two ago, we would need to know what truck did that inspection and then go find the logs based on that truck. It was a very time-consuming process, and usually just resulted in us asking the crews to re-TV the sewer for us, because it was quicker to do that than it was sometimes to find the actual DVDs. Now, when our crews go out and TV inspect a sewer, when they get back to Maxim Road, they plug in their laptop, and overnight, all the inspections from that day are loaded into a cloud. And then the next day, engineering or whoever else wants to, operations to, can log into the IT pipe system and pull up that TV inspection. In addition, it'll show historical inspections as well. You get a quick shot of any defects in that sewer, and you get the whole video itself. It's really become a powerful tool between engineering and operations for the sewer collection system. And I'll briefly show the two systems. It's not a video, it's the web links that were in the email. That's not it.
But we're trying to get this going. One of the projects for this year is to bring,
I sent an email
basically when we do those
to Julie.
inspections on the sewer pipe, we're identifying defects, so it's in the standardized format they call PACP. So those defects are now gonna get coded into our asset management system, which is SAP.
Jimmy,
So we're gonna be able to track and actually geographically reference all those defects. So we identify that, hey, there's a separated lateral from the sewer in front of this property, that'll show up as a dot on a map, as well as assignment and responsibility for someone to address it. So it's really connecting all this data that we have into one repository that's actionable for us, so.
Unfortunately, you don't get something for nothing, right? So with all this technology, just like your cell phone, you have too many pictures, you have too many videos, guess what? You need more memory. So that means our IT expense will go up in time because our cloud, we need to store this stuff, and it costs money to store this stuff in the cloud, so, but it's important.
So we're going to skip the presentation, the little demo, because we can't find the links.
All right, and just this last slide here. So this is, in conclusion, this is proof of how the engineering department has evolved. Certainly from when I started, previous to 2000, this is showing you capital spend in blue since 2000 to 2022, and then, when the clean water project started, you can see the green bars started, and that's what the district has been spending on our infrastructure over the past 22 years. And just for a little added touch, that's the staffing in the engineering department, and the purple line going across. So certainly, we are doing more with less, so the proof is right there. We're managing a ton of projects, a lot of money, and I feel doing it very efficiently and effectively. And with that, I think, Jason, we've got one more slide, and we were going to show you just 2 quick videos that I think are working here.
So one of the biggest improvements we made was our record drawing process, which is something that's new this year. The Vivax unit is the units on the screen. On the table is what we call a Trimble R2 unit. It's the, I can go over and show up, it's the gray object basically. We went from a system that had 1.5 drafters, an inspector, a part-time survey crew, to a system that is now 1 consultant drafter and an inspector, and basically the inspector, as pipes are going in the ground, is taking real-time GPS shots with that unit. It's got an accuracy of 1 centimeter horizontal, 2 centimeters vertical. That data live goes into our ArcGIS online. Yeah, it's that one. Nope, other one. Sorry. It's the other one.
Uh-oh.
I think we killed the computer. It's that one. Yeah. So this video shows the actual collection of survey information by an inspector.
And again, you saw this video and the same information from the operational staff, but the important point is that engineering is driving this issue. It's not operations working on its own. Independently, it's engineering and operations working together. Very important.
Stay right there, Annie. I'll get behind you.
Can you help us explain what are we looking at?
So basically, this is a water service with a metered pit going in, and they're taking shots of the water service itself. They're recording the diameter and materials of the pipe and the GPS location of the pipe. So what's that?
As it's going in the ground.
Yes, in that small cone.
Okay. No, just say.
Yeah, so just to give us some perspective.
Yeah.
So if we were to do that repair, replace that water service, put that meter pit in, someone would be on a 8.5 by 11 doing a sketch, bringing a cloth tape measure, measuring everything out. That would go to another department to review, then another department to put in GIS, then it would have to go into record drawings. What we ended up doing was taking what used to take about 2 years to get that data into a record drawing process, and shorten it down to 2 weeks.
Wow.
But the best part about it is that is sub-inch accuracy is what Jason talked about. So next time we need to go mark out that asset, whatever it be the water main, sewer laterals, water service, we're within a 1 inch of its location at all times. So I mentioned in the previous meeting, this is getting us to, whether it be 10 years, 15 years from now, is actually visualizing our assets in a 3D visual space so we could actually see potential conflicts. Having this in downtown Hartford would be amazing opportunity for us because it's so busy. It's a sort of the spaghetti utilities, but actually being able to visualize what we have to support, what do we have to dig around, do we have to bring a special truck in to excavate? So this is just getting us there through an iterative process. So everything we touch now is getting one of these GPS shots now.
Efficiency.
That's it.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Question?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned, Scott mentioned the words succession planning, and while it doesn't appear that we have a senior staff, we certainly have a senior staff in knowledge and experience. And it kind of scares me to think that we're on top of this, right?
We have, Scott Jellison, we have a lot of, I wouldn't say they're old out there, but we do have a lot of young staff that aren't here tonight, our succession planning. The important part of, like we've said in the past, the majority of the staff here, I can take credit for promoting because they were all young engineers, and I would tell you this, that this engineering core group is as smart and as good as any engineering company in the country. And the only reason why we hire consultants is because of how much work we have to do. But this group is leading and managing that effort. So, we're doing $100 million a year, not in construction contracts. So one construction contract is 20 million, one is 50, one is 30. That 75 to 90 million represents cash spending. So if you have $90 million worth of requisitions that you're paying for in the construction season, that might total $1 billion worth of construction contracts, right? So that 75 million to 90 million is cash flow. How much are we actually paying contractors every year, which is not the same as how many, what is the total amount of contracts that we've awarded. Two different numbers. But this group is outstanding. Susan does a great job. All of the staff, Chris does a great job. It really is. I mean, I would tell you, we have, if you ask our consultants about our staff and our capabilities, there is no lag between the private sector and MDC's engineering department.
I do have one question, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. In part of the presentation, you talked about the facilities throughout the state, the pump stations, the plants, and over the past 10 years, you've had new builds and rebuilds, and I see a lot of gently sloping roofs and a lot of flat property. Do we at any time incorporate, as we're doing this, solar energy?
We've looked at solar a number of times. We've looked at, we do have the Pequannock facility that we constructed. It's that return on investment number that sometimes just doesn't prove out to be as much as we'd like. That's why we've really only implemented a few things.
Maybe in the future we should look at it again, considering our electric rates are going to skyrocket.
Unfortunately, Scott Jellison, unfortunately, the reason why the electric rates are skyrocketing is because of solar. the way in which the utilities pay for this. So the legislature would say, you must do X amount of your energy production using renewables, solar, wind, whatever else it might be. And so it's mandated by the state, and it's regulated through PURA. So PURA will tell a utility, you must produce X amount of your power from solar, for example. Well, how do you do that? Solar isn't as efficient, obviously, as other natural gas. So what happens is everybody's bill, you'll see a charge on there for, I don't know if it's 6% now, but everyone pays for that, right? We all pay for that ability. But in our experience, and we've done a couple of projects, Pequannock, for example, cost us about $250,000 to execute. We make about $13,000 a year in power sales, or we defer $13,000. So $13,000 divided into 250 is, Alex, where's Alex?
19.
25 years.
Oh, 25-year payback. So the problem with a payback, you know, when you're doing a project, energy project, you want a payback to be less than 10 years, right? Because by the time, 25 years comes, you're having to replace it. So you didn't make anything. So our payback with any project, energy project, we like to have that payback between 5 and 10 year period.
So I might just listen, how about co or tri-generation systems? Do we ever look at that?
So we have cogeneration. It's called a heat recovery plant at the Hartford wastewater treatment plant. Thank you. So that produces. We're taking our producing steam off of our stacks, and that produces about approximately 1.7 megawatts of power. The plant's using about 5 megawatts of power. That saves us about $2 million a year in deferred energy expense by not having to buy that power through the grid. So yes, we do have and have done that, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You lost more commissioners, engineering. I just want to tell you. You lost commissioners, they left.
All I can tell you is engineering did a real good job. Scott was up to a little less than 4 minutes and just blew it in the last 4.
He's keeping track.
I'm keeping track right now.
Great job. Great job to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's do this quickly. General comments.
You lost Judy.
Judy? She's gone. Lost Judy. Anybody online? No? Okay, so.
Adjourn.
Motion? Gone. Thank you.
God. All right. How many more we got?